I'm having a conversation for the Mother's Voice podcast with Anne Baring. You are a writer. You are a true elder, I would say, right?
And I'm certainly an elder. Yeah.
Yes, you might want to tell us how old you are, actually, if I can ask you that.
Oh, yeah, I don't mind at all. I'm quite proud. I'm 94.
That's amazing. I can't believe I'm sitting here with a 94-year-old lady from England talking about the Great Mother. It's such a pleasure to have you on today, Anne. So we have something in common, and I'm a photographer, and like I feel a deep calling to revive or like bring back to life the image of the mother, right? And because for some reason this image, like the impression that we have of who the mother is, has been lost. And it's distorted and it's just not right. So becoming a mother myself 13 years ago, I went on that path of, digging and finding out who the mother really is, right? And who is our spiritual counterpart, so to speak. And you kind of are on the same quest, or have been on the same quest for many, many years now. And you have written several books about that. And I would like to find out with you together what has happened to the image of the mother.
Yes, well, it's a long story as I tell it in that book, going back to 623 BCE, when we lost the image of the goddess in the Hebrew tradition, when she was actually deleted by a group of priests under the orders of the king at that time, who was called King Josiah, to delete every trace of the goddess Asherah, who was married or who was the consort of Yahweh. So they were a pair at that time until the time of the removal of the goddess. Yahweh and Asherah were, as it were, married in the divine realm. And in eliminating the goddess, they really eliminated or made a huge gap between spirit and nature, because the goddess had always represented nature in all the older civilizations. Take Egypt or Sumer or Greece or Rome. Right. She had always been associated with nature. Take Demeter in the Greek tradition. Take Gaia, again, represented the earth.
Yeah.
So those later goddesses, which we know of, really always had the mother in the Godhead, whether they were multiple gods and goddesses or a single god and goddess, whatever you like to make it, as it was in the Hebrew tradition. We lost the mother when we lost the goddess. And that's the fact that nobody knows, because it's not really recalled by anybody, until a wonderful Old Testament scholar called Dr. Margaret Barker researched all this. And she found that wisdom, which represented the feminine aspect of deity, divine wisdom, which comes in the book of Proverbs, very old, time of Solomon, was deleted, completely deleted from the Hebrew tradition. And she wondered why. So she went back and discovered all these things. And she discovered that the group of priests had been ordered to remove all trace of the goddess and cut down her sacred trees, take her statue out of the temple, take the little statues in people's homes, destroy them, and remove the women who wove the garments for the goddess in the temple, and that kind of thing. And also these priests removed all mention of the hosts of heaven, the angels. Mm-hmm. So that is where we lost our connection with the angels in that tradition. And that tradition was passed on to Christianity because Christianity took on the Old Testament directly, so to speak, lock, stock and barrel, without knowing what it was doing, not knowing anything about this loss of the goddess. It's there in the book of Genesis. The word ruach stands really for the feminine principle, but it skips people's notice. They don't know people who don't know Hebrew don't know about the existence of the goddess, or indeed they don't speak Aramaic, which is the language of Jesus, so they don't pick up the wonderful poetry of Aramaic, which always addresses the father and the mother together. So that Our Father, for instance, with our prayer that we say, doesn't begin with that. It begins with mother and father in heaven. So that they're always together in the Aramaic tradition and in the old Jewish tradition, the old Hebrew tradition. So this is what happened. And from that, we had the development, because it was the beginning of monotheism, because you had Yahweh on his own, you had the beginning of monotheism, and that went into the three patriarchal religions. So we have no mother, no goddess in any of the patriarchal religions. And we have just the sole Father sitting up in heaven, far away from the earth, and telling people what to do. And these Deuteronomist priests also created the myth of the fall. And they gave the title of the former goddess, who was worshipped as divine wisdom and the Holy Spirit and the tree of life. They gave her title, which was Mother of all living, to Eve in the story of the fall. So they really had a ball. They just messed everything up at that time. And we inherited all this without knowing what happened until this wonderful scholar, Dr. Margaret Barker, began to research everything and see what's happened. So that's the story, basically. And it's come down to us as the separation or the cutting of the umbilical cord between spirit up in heaven and nature down here, which is what we belong to. We are part of nature. We're not separate from it. So that was the huge, as it were, cutting of the umbilical cord between spirit and nature. And then later on in our own sort of history in the West, we've had scientific materialism, which denies that there is a God at all and denies that there is a soul and sees us as a mechanism and the universe as a mechanism. So that's been the second trauma, if you like. The first was the loss of the goddess, but the second is scientific materialism and its dreadful philosophy, which has infiltrated every aspect of academic life and governments. Governments are mainly people who don't believe in anything except what scientific materialism has taught them. So it's a mess.
Yeah, it's upside down and it's inverted, and it's just like the way we live. It's just so wrong on so many levels, right? So I'm wondering, like, could one say that what you just described, like the removal of the goddess, could be the biggest psyop of all times in a way?
Yes, because before that you had thousands of years when the goddess was worshipped. And you had the most beautiful temples, which were left abandoned and then gradually either were destroyed, like the temple of Eleusis was destroyed in the 4th century by an emperor called Theodosius I. So you had loss of all the women who used to serve as priestesses in the temples, loss of the temples themselves, and loss of the whole tradition of the goddess and really what she represented. So I think this was like cutting off one's connection to the cosmos, basically, because you're left only with the Father God, who doesn't seem to be very agreeable, although he's made out to be very loving, but he's missing the feminine principle as consort. And that makes a huge difference. We've created this God in the image of ourselves. So we see him as a man up in heaven, sitting on a throne. That's the sort of Christian image that's come down to us. And we see Jesus as his crucified son. In every church that you go into, Catholic church or Protestant church, there's the crucifix. And there's no emphasis on the resurrection. It's always on the crucifixion.
Death. Yeah.
And then we have been blamed for that because he died for us, for our sins. So the whole thing is a ghastly story. It's a myth that was created in the 4th century, quite deliberately, by something called the Council of Nicaea and the bishops who were in that council. And they declared Jesus to be the only Son of God, in saying that instead of saying that all people are the sons and daughters of God, you have this single Son. And it's not what Jesus would have wanted. He always called himself the Son of Man, never the Son of God. But they created this myth, and we've been forced to accept it ever since, because there hasn't been an alternative.
Well, that really makes me wonder how, it makes so much sense the way you explain it, the way we live today, right? The way we find ourselves like lost in a way in this modern world without having any reference to our true history, right?
Yeah, we're cut off from it completely.
Yeah.
And also we're being directed quite deliberately, I think, into a completely toxic environment of technology, which is taking over our lives more and more. And we're going to be eventually imprisoned in a kind of digital prison, which has already started with people being forced to have digital IDs and things like that. And this is part of a plan to really get rid of the old humanity and create a new one, which is under the control of a few people who are running the planet through technology. So that's the plan. I've been reading books about it recently, and I have 2 chapters in my book about it as well, because I'm so horrified by the idea of transhumanism, in which we lose our humanity.
Yeah.
And also the creation of artificial wombs, which will have artificial fetuses.
I've seen that. It's bizarre.
Well, it's not bizarre. It's evil.
Yeah.
It's evil. And this would do away with women. No need for women.
Exactly.
No need for relationship.
The erasure of the mother. It just goes on. Yeah. So, and that's what also drives me in my work, right? Because I see it, and I see it in the human mothers as well, because they feel especially lost in our world, right? And the way we birth our babies into this world in the hospitals mostly is also kind of like a horrific scenario, right? Because also the umbilical cord is cut with like a metal scissor way too early usually, and then the placenta is thrown away or being sold for thousands of dollars to the cosmetic market. So basically, like when we come into the earth as a baby, we are already cut off, and it's going way too fast that we are disconnected from spirit, right? And mothers go there not knowing that it's basically, how shall I say, like that they are deliberately wanting to destroy the connection to their baby, right?
I think it's unconscious so far, I think, but it could become conscious with transhumanism. I think that I've seen it happen in the UK, a terrible deterioration in the quality of midwives who are bringing new life into being, who are not trained as nurses, first of all, and who just say, well, I'd like to be a midwife, and then they become a midwife, but they've probably had 2 years training or something like that. And there's no empathic connection with the women whom they're asked to help give birth. I mean, it's the most precious and spiritual moment in a woman's life, giving birth, and the most difficult physically because of the pain. And they're just treated as a mechanism to be got rid of as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Get out of the hospital and back to the home before they're prepared in any way. I think France is the only country which allows 5 days for both mother and father to be together with the baby before they're told to leave. And England, you're out the same day. My daughter was out the same day with her baby. It was shocking, absolutely shocking. And there's nothing that women can really do, although there's a lot of protests now, and the government is looking into the treatment of women in childbirth, because there's so many deaths, and so many deaths not only of the babies, but of the mothers as well, particularly of the Black people.
Yeah, it's a whole field that needs to be revived as well. I feel like mothers, like birthing at home is becoming more and more normal again, because trusting in one's ability to be able to give birth and not needing some doctor to pull out the baby. You know, I think that's essential for every woman to grow up with that kind of mindset of like awakened mothers and other women around them, to teach them what it means to be a woman, you know, to have like these role models. And we have been stripped of everyone who is kind of related, who teaches wisdom. You know what I mean? Like we don't even have elders anymore like you. I wish I had elders in your age around me, you know, that I could ask for advice or something. But it's like we are losing the elders. We're losing the mature men, you know, many of them can't even be in relationships anymore. Like there are so many divorces, single mothers. It's the whole humanity, the whole social aspect of humanity is being destroyed.
Well, it's a gradual plan, I think, to diminish the population of the planet. This has been going on for 100 years or more. It isn't really known, but it is coming out because it's oozing out of the corners where it hasn't been seen, so to speak. But part of the plan was to get women into work so that they could contribute to the GDP of the country.
Yeah.
And then that meant that they neglected the home, or they were exhausted from trying to work in the work office and run the home as well and look after children. So there was a terrible split in women's lives between two kinds of life, the office life and the home life. And the home life was diminished in relation to the office, which was built up as something wonderful, where women could join men, so to speak. They could be equal with men. They could copy men's sort of mode of being, and they would completely forget their own skills, including cooking, and making a lovely home and making it welcome for the man, and all that that went out the window.
Yeah.
So you had two exhausted people coming home at night, and the children not having nearly enough nourishment of any kind, whether food or spiritual nourishment, and listening to their interests and what they're becoming as children. Nothing is more marvelous than see a baby growing up into a little boy or girl and then maturing to a 10 or 12-year-old and then a teenager and so on. It's a miracle, and the miracle takes place before us and we don't notice it anymore. And I think you need to make all your listeners aware that this is a process that has been deliberately instated by governments and by people influencing governments. It's to do with the depopulation of the planet, to do with increasing GDP, with women working as well as men, and increasing the burden on women all the way through, and then in the end dismissing them as getting rid of them altogether as not necessary, because you can have artificial wombs and artificial fetuses. So that's where it's going if we don't stop it. And I think women all over the world need to come together, first of all, to stop it and deal with the appalling conditions of childbirth. And secondly, to speak up against the loss of their children in war and the loss of their sons above all. Can you imagine the Russian mothers, where over 1 million sons have been killed, and the Ukrainian mothers, pretty well the same amount? And look at Gaza and the terrible mess that's there, and the people that have been killed, in the desperate position of women in Gaza. I mean, the whole thing is atrocious. And we haven't seen it happening because it's just going on, and we grow up. And I don't know how old you are, but I imagine you're in your 30s. So you may not have seen, but you have seen, obviously, because you're telling me about what you've seen and what worries you. But I think if you can start something to gather the women. There used to be something called Gather the Women in America, but it's something that could be done because with the internet, the one good thing about it is that it does put us in touch with each other.
Definitely, yeah.
And things can be done that couldn't be done before.
Yeah.
So I would urge you to do everything you can to wake up women, because they're sound asleep, most of them. They're just victims of what's happening.
Yeah.
And they don't really recognize what they've lost.
Yeah. And it all has to do with the loss of the awareness of the goddess, right? I mean, it's like you can draw it back one to one. Like it's a direct line to where we find ourselves living a modern womanly life, right?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. It's 2,500 years of having no goddess. And you can't really count the Virgin Mary as a goddess, I don't think, although she does represent the feminine principle, but she's been so diminished to what she
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, I've been looking at her images a lot. Like they're placed all over Germany in the Catholic churches or drawn on house walls, in the cities. And like she is there, right? I can see her like daily when I walk through the streets. But she doesn't have an impact on us anymore. Like she doesn't have the power that she used to have, right? It's merely an image, which is kind of without life, right? Without an energy field around it.
It's
Like,
part of the myth. She's part of
yeah,
the myth that they created,
yeah.
in which they made her, I think in the 451, the Council of Chalcedon, she was made Mother of God.
Mm-hmm.
And that she's remained that in the Catholic Church. But the goddess aspect, the wisdom aspect, is nowhere to be seen.
That's the thing, exactly. Like we see her image everywhere, and people also pray to her, Mother Mary, but she's not part of God, right? That's the difference. Like she is just accepted as being part of it, but she doesn't really play a role.
But the strange thing is that she was brought into the Holy of Holies, had equality with the God in, I think it was 1951. There was a papal bull or a papal encyclical that said that she was taken up into heaven, body and soul, which meant that in the bridal chamber. Mm-hmm. So there is that papal declaration, but it hasn't worked its way through into the public. It's in my other book, the Dream of the Cosmos. Mm-hmm. I'll tell it like that. I haven't brought it into my latest book, but it was in the other book because it's very important, but people don't know about it because that makes her equal to God. It makes her the companion or the consort of God, so to speak. Yeah. Well, not exactly the consort, but anyway, the presence, feminine presence in the Godhead. But it's missed the recognition that was needed after that time.
Yeah, yeah. I've been following a lot of truthers, so to speak, right? Also in the US, there's like a freedom movement going on everywhere, right? You can feel it and be part of it. It might be small in some parts of the world, but I feel like it's gaining traction, right? And in Germany, it's a little bit difficult because people are so like as if they have given up in a way, they're not revolting or anything. They're just like doing nothing really. So I feel really called to speak out about these things. And, I've been listening to so many podcasts about the COVID psyop and the transhumanist agenda and all the other agendas that are at play, like the chemtrail stuff and all of that. And I'm aware of it. And what I'm always wondering is no one really talks about the missing goddess, right? Like no one of the truther movement, so to speak, people who are interested in finding out the root cause of things, right? They don't really touch that topic. Like they usually speak of God or the creator, but then they also say he, So It feels like they're not even like it's not in the awareness, in the consciousness yet of the people who call themselves awake,
No, I agree. It's not in the consciousness. That's why I wrote my book.
Yeah.
But because to try and give them the historical timeline of what's happened so that they understand that they lost something absolutely vital, which they're not even aware of. Because they go on worshipping the God or thinking the God is there, but they don't think, where is the feminine principle? What's happened?
Yeah.
They just are not sufficiently aware. So I thought in writing this book that I would be able to get something through to women mainly, but also men, to recognize that something absolutely vital has been missing from culture for 2,500 years of the West, in the West. I'm not speaking about the whole world. And this has led, in the way the Christian church behaved to other people, to indigenous people, to the people in South America, the massacre and the torture and the destruction that went on for centuries is not known about either. And so I put that in my book
Yeah.
because I think it's absolutely disgraceful that the church has been allowed to get away with so much terrible behavior without anybody calling it into question or saying what's happened. This isn't right, you know?
Yeah.
And it's still going on. You can still get people being converted to Christianity in Africa, for instance, and other places, with the same old story.
Yeah. So if we travel back to 2000, you say it's about 2,500 years ago that this happened, right?
Well, it's 2,623 years ago.
Okay, you know the exact number. Hopefully we'll put an end on it soon.
Yeah.
Okay, so since I always want to go to the root to understand why things are happening, I'm wondering, like, when we travel back in time, do you think that there is, like, someone made a plan to destroy the mother goddess? Like, was there like an evil plan back then? And did they already kind of know how this would play out to the modern times that we find ourselves in now? Like, you know, like, I mean, I've heard about the archons and the Gnostic wisdom and SOPHIA and the whole creation story. I'm just always wondering, like, how did this come into existence? You know, like,
it came into existence because men were in control the whole way through. Not a single woman's voice except Hildegard of Bingen. That's the only person I can think of.
She was a German, right?
Yeah. Very important.
Yeah.
And she took the bishops to task and everything. She went for them.
Yeah.
I can't remember what about it exactly. She brought wisdom in.
Yeah, definitely.
It was wisdom. Anyway, it could be what you call the archons. It could be that something said, we'll just get rid of the goddess and then we'll have a field day. We can do whatever we want. We can shape humanity to go in this direction or that direction. And they'll get off the evolutionary path. They'll forget why they're here. And they won't know what's happened. They'll just go blindly on. There could have been that because there is definitely a negative something on the planet or in the universe, which might have twisted things in this direction that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Get rid of the goddess, get rid of the feminine principle, which is the principle of relationship. Yeah. This is the primary principle of relationship. And get rid of love, compassion, caring, harmony, beauty. Increasingly, we see the loss of all of those things in our culture, particularly beauty. I mean, look at the hideous ugliness of the buildings that we have today compared to what they were 1,000 years ago. So, or even 200 years ago, you know, it's really tragic. So it does feel as if there's something which says, well, we'll just get into Christianity and we'll make them get rid of the Gnostics and burn all their gospels, and then there won't be any trace of the goddess. And we'll just have the myth that we're going to make them create of the only Son of God, which will exclude women and will exclude other cultures from being part of the divine dispensation, so to speak. So Christianity will have the leading role in the whole world. That was the aim. They would convert many more people than other religions, perhaps. And then along came Islam with the same proselytizing zeal to convert people to their religion. So, I mean, you could see that there is an influence, and particularly now, the influence on getting rid of humanity. A large portion of it that happened in the COVID years. That was part of the plot to reduce the population. And this is really something that one can, you might very well be right in asking, is there some evil principle that puts a spanner in the wheels all the time so that we can't have a straight path to our evolutionary development? But there is something now happening. Apparently the planet is being raised in this secret tradition from the third dimension to the fifth.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
And with that will go perhaps the loss of these old habits of war and killing other people. And that may be the only hope, really, because unless something happens like that, I don't see any hope for humanity in the future. I really don't. And it's such a a waste of all the wonderful effort of all the creative people who've existed from the beginning of time. When you look at the whole range of gifts that humanity has, including the practical gifts of building things with wood and stone,
Yeah.
It's wonderful what has been achieved. And the beauty that's been created in the past is just extraordinary. If you look at the great cathedrals, the Romanesque and the Gothic cathedrals, it's a miracle of creativity that we're looking at.
Yeah.
And this has all come from the divine spirit within us. It's the creative spirit of life that wants to make these things.
Right.
And that has been completely neglected. The indwelling spirit has been completely neglected.
Yeah.
By all the religions. They haven't really brought up, except the mystical Sufism, for instance, in Islam, we have it there, and we have it in the Christian mystics. But you don't have the teaching that Christ is within us, or that the divine wisdom is within us, which is in the secret tradition. I'm just writing a talk, which I'm going to give on Saturday, in which I'm giving the whole thing from the first temple in Jerusalem right up to the present day, including the role of Mary Magdalene, which was so important, which has been neglected as well because she was rejected by the church as a whore, and she stayed that way until quite recently. So this history, if it was known, could change things, I think, because women, once they understand what has been lost and what they've been put through in that loss, they might rise up in their millions and just say, we've had enough.
I feel like it's also an energetic thing, just you and I speaking about it, just putting words to the lies that have been told and uncovering them makes a difference, right? Because that's the waking up process that we find ourselves in as humanity, because we are waking up that we are not slaves, we have like our inner abilities to express love and life through us, the Christ principle within. I mean, I'm very well aware of that. And I feel like that's the whole rising of the spirit, right? So I don't want to give up yet because I'm younger than you. So I have to be on earth a little bit longer. So I'm full of hope and optimism. And actually, it must go on in a better way. Like it can't be that, I don't know, like people are talking about World War III and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, I don't believe that. It's in our hands, basically,
It is, but it's in women's hands, because if they said there is going to be no World War III, there's going to be an end to all this slaughter and human sacrifice, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
Something could happen, but women are more than half the population of the planet. If you look under Google and ask how many men and women, there's several 100,000 more women than men. Mm-hmm. So there's no reason why they can't wake up and actually challenge the whole thing that's going on and say, we've had enough of slaughter. We've had enough of bringing up our children to be killed. We've had enough of this suffering with buildings being torn down all around us by bombs. We've had enough of these terrible weapons which are designed to kill as many people as possible. All this is evil.
Yeah.
And if they said that just straightforward, because nobody's thought of these weapons, what are they called, of mass destruction, nuclear weapons, they've never called them evil. They've said, oh, this wonderful new discovery of how to make these weapons, which came with the discovery of the first atomic explosion, so to speak.
Well, you know what? I've heard that the nuclear weapons is also a psyop, that they don't actually exist, and then they're just using it to threaten people, Yeah. So, I mean, there are lots of rabbit holes you can look into, It's just so interesting that basically to every story that they invented, there is a counter story, right? That you can also look into, and then you find a different truth. And then it's about how you relate to it, I guess, But yeah, it's funny, basically. Sometimes it's really funny, actually, to go into the rabbit holes, because it's just so crazy what's crazy out there,
When you look at it like you're looking at it, it is absolutely crazy. And that's the way I've been looking at it too.
Yeah.
And I keep saying, but why can't people see what's happening? Why can't people stop all these wars and can't see that killing people like Israel and America are bombing Iran is wrong, no matter what you think about how awful the Iranian regime is. You have no right to just bomb it to pieces. You know, I mean, this is arrogance and inflation on such a scale, which again, people don't recognize. And if you listen to Trump speaking, he's simply an inflated narcissist, and no more than that. And yet
he's a liar too, because he said he wants to be the president of peace, right? So he's doing the opposite.
So he's under the greatest illusions possible. But anyway, even if giving him the benefit of the doubt, he still needs to change. And that awful God, we're agents of God in eliminating evil business, that has to go, because there's no way they can know that God is supporting them. They just say that he is, he must be. And they're waiting for Armageddon and, you know, the whole final destruction of everything. But they're inviting the destruction of everything by going on the path that they're on. So what can be done? Anyway, you're young enough, beautiful enough, and clever enough to do something about it.
I'm definitely doing that, and I'm about to build a international network of mothers that's called Mothers of the Earth. So
that's lovely.
I'm on a mission. It's just that, you know, I'm a single mom, and let's speak about the masculine for a moment, being a single mother. There are so many single mothers in Germany, but I think like in the whole Western world, there are lots of single mothers, right? So relationships don't work anymore as they used to, right? People are getting divorces. The sacred union of men and women, which is meant to be, like we are meant to be in a sacred union, right? If we were in harmony with the natural order. Yeah, and so I was reading in your book, which really struck me, is that so the mother was prior to everything, right? And through her came the father into existence. And they built a sacred union, and that was the first experience of love. Is that correct?
I don't know that it's exactly correct. I don't think you can pin it down to a specific time or place. It happened that originally you had the Great Mother as the origin of everything. That was in the Paleolithic and the Neolithic. Then you had the young god coming in, who was the son and the lover of the goddess in Sumer, not so much in Egypt. And then you had him growing up until he becomes the consort of the goddess. And so you have the sacred marriage, and that's a terribly important image, the sacred marriage of goddess and god in Egypt and in Sumer and in Greece as well, not so much in Rome, but certainly in Greece. You had Hera and Zeus uniting on a beautiful bed of flowers, and that was the sacred marriage in the Greek tradition, as told by Homer. So that really was there as an image, as the basic relationship between men and women, reflecting the relationship between God and goddess. And in the Kabbalah, you have the union of man and woman as continuing the creation act of the God and goddess in the divine world, so to speak, so that we humans are very important for the continuation of the divine intention, if you like. So that in having children and being together, the husband and the wife, in bringing love into the world through this relationship, they're actually enacting the will of the god goddess in heaven. I'm only put it in the basic terms. But this has all gone with the loss of the goddess, and so you've had no sacred marriage. And so you've had the disintegration, really, of the relationship between men and women.
Yeah.
And I don't know what broke up your relationship. I've been married for 66 years now, to a wonderful man of very fine quality. He's an artist. He's not in the business world, not in the diplomatic world or any other world. He's very private. And we've had a very good relationship with me writing and him painting, all the way through our 65 years of marriage. We've had one child and one grandchild. both of whom were dyslexic, so there were difficulties bringing them up and educating them and everything. But they both turned out well and happy. So there is a way. I don't know what went wrong in your relationship, but it seems to me a tragedy that your children have no father.
Well, she does have a father. We're just like, right now she's with him at the moment. Like, she visits him. Obviously, like, there is contact, but what I'm referring to is more general, like the understanding who we are as women and who men are. Like, I think there's a whole, like, men are so lost as well, right? Like I experience many women waking up to who they are, like feeling the goddess inside of them, like wanting more and wanting to be seen in their highest expression. And I feel like the men don't really understand what's going on with the women, you know, because the women are leading the way. And many of them are just leaving their men because they're not putting up with them, you know, they're not following them. They're not waking up in a way that they do. So, that puts a hole in the relationship, I feel. And so I feel like feminism destroyed a lot, you know, because the moment women want to become men in a way, you know, want to be like men don't really have a chance to be men anymore, you know, because when the women change so much. Yeah.
You don't want two men in the family, so to speak.
That's the thing. So women don't really behave like women and men don't behave like men anymore. And there really needs to be a certain order of things, right? So the sacred union should be something that is, in service to life. Right?
It should be a joining together in service of life, a coming together in mutual affection and respect, and serving life in some way through the way you treat each other and through whatever your work is. It should be about service, not about gain, financial gain or fame or anything else like that. It's service of life in the deepest sense. And I think also what men and women don't realize is that they have a contrasexual aspect to their life. The women have what's called an animus in the Jungian sense, and men have an anima. That is to say, they have the feminine element in their nature. But the feminine element in men's nature has been so crushed out by their training to be warriors for thousands of years that it's almost unconscious. And so it can affect them in a negative way. They can be very defensive against women. Or against women becoming more like men, because they don't know where they are, as you said, anymore. They have no role. They're not needed unless they're warriors, in which case they die, usually. So it's a terrible sort of bind situation in which men and women are trapped or caught in the wrong relationship with each other, not knowing who they are or not knowing why they're here on this planet. And so there's no meeting ground between them to talk, you know, to discuss these things.
Yeah. And also there's no real understanding of who the mother is, you know, like many men don't realize that they serve the mother and the mother serves the child, right? Like there is that natural order that makes a family work, right? And so many mothers are depleted because they're doing it all. And the man is just not at home. He's working outside of the house, you know. So mothers are doing it all and they're not being recognized for their work and not valued for their work either. So, yeah. So what's the solution to that? Like, how would do you have an advice?
I don't know, but I think that men are extremely sensitive. And I see my grandson, who's now 30, and he's really a heart person. But he said to me the other day, he said, what can I do if I take a girl out and find she's a man, she's got a penis?
It can happen these days.
And it can happen.
Yes.
So, you know, he's all confused. And I try and kind of give him some words of advice, but he's so sweet and so innocent, really, but bewildered by what the relationship with a woman might be.
Yeah.
He hasn't got a girlfriend because I think he's too frightened.
Yeah, but that's what happens, right? I feel like how can we find a common ground again? I feel like that it's also in accepting who the mother is, isn't it? Like shedding light on the goddess and the mother, because then men can relate to who we are as human mothers.
Yes, but then it puts the father into the shade. You have to have a balance.
Yeah.
You have to have the father of equal importance. Otherwise, he's diminished and he feels neglected and abandoned by woman. And then he gets angry and then he goes off with another woman. So it doesn't work to have the mother come back just like that. It has to be a total reorientation of both man and woman to realize they're on this planet for a purpose. And part of that purpose is to help each other bring new life into being and care for that life as best they can. And that this means a change to the whole educational system. That's another thing.
Yeah.
The way children are brought up in school and the way women are just put in the same category as boys and girls together, brought up together. So they're brought up with the same teaching, so to speak. There's nothing different between the way women are brought up and the way men are brought up. And all the old skills of cooking and homemaking have gone. Neither men nor women know how to cook.
Well, I know how to cook. I love it. But but you're right. The emphasis is not on a warm, beautiful home anymore. You know, it's more working outside and giving the children to kindergarten, which is destructive to the families. Yeah.
And then you have to pay enormous sums of money to the kindergarten, or you do in this country anyway, in order that women can go out to work, but they have to put the children in kindergarten. And that's such a tragedy because it's just those years between 2 and 6 which are vitally important for giving the child the foundation that will be the foundation for his whole life, his or her whole life. What is done in those 3 or 4 years will shape them for what they become. And if they pick up ideas in the kindergarten and things about women being like this and men being like that.
They're infiltrating these agendas on them already when they're like 2 or 3 years old. It's bizarre.
That is criminal, actually. I think I call it soul murder. The whole trans thing being introduced into schools is soul murder. And I think that that's utterly wrong. So there's a lot to be deplored, but also there's a lot to be excited about, because this is a whole new era we're entering. We can't go on as we have before. And we've come to the end of it. It's petering out. The relationships are breaking down everywhere. Governments are disgraceful in their treatment of the people. They don't serve the people. They serve their own interests. And the people are becoming aware of it. But at the moment, there's no engine for expressing their distress except going marching in the streets or something like that.
Which is not so effective, right? Going on demonstrations. I mean, I've done it a couple of years ago when they rolled out the whole COVID thing. But then I realized it's weird. It's not who I want to be, marching in the streets and fighting. And that's not my way. So what are you suggesting is the way?
I think the way is what you're doing, is bringing the mothers together to discuss all these things and to work out a better way of living. Because this is what it's asking for, is a new way of living between men and women, a new respect, and less anger on the part of women, and less, not exactly anger on the part of men. It's really a turning away from women because they don't know how to handle women anymore. They don't know how to relate to them with empathy. Then there's fighting. I told you this, or I told you that, and why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? You get the anger coming in, which doesn't solve anything. And instead of working to think what's best for the children, what's best for our future, what's best for the home, for the animals in the home, for example, what makes animals happy in the home, that's another thing. If they're divided, they start off with a man and woman, then all of a sudden the man's gone. The dog or the cat stays probably with the woman, but will miss the man. That's another thing to think about, the feelings of cats and dogs. I had a woman here yesterday, a wonderful woman, half Greek, half English, And her work has been to make people aware that animals have consciousness and can actually communicate with us. So that's a whole other thing that she's bringing up, that we're completely unaware that the animals are conscious and know what's going on, and can't speak to tell us, why did you do this or why did you do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a huge panorama of change and a different kind of attitude to life, asking the questions. I put the 4 questions: where have we come from? What are we doing on this planet? Why are we here? Where do we go when we die? And what is our purpose on this planet? When we're born, what have we come in to do as human beings? What is our life path that we've probably chosen in another world and then incarnated to live it in this one? So there's so much to be understood that's not understood. So much ignorance about the fact that we survive death, that there is no such thing as death, that we are immortal. That's not known at all, and we haven't been taught it. And that's in my book at the end. So all this needs to be addressed, and I think it can only be addressed by women's empathic relationship with each other and with men and with children, not laying down the law, not going the feminist way, because that was all to do with power.
Yeah.
Anything to do with power should be put to one side. Anything to do with relationship should be nourished.
Yeah. That's the mother, isn't it? Like the relationship part.
It's the feminine. It's the feminine. The way of, it used to be the way of women really serving life by making life agreeable. But for many thousands of years, unfortunately, they were at the bottom of the pile and they were treated as slaves or servants or lower class or whatever. Everything was divided in society into classes, so that you had the women in the lowest class having the most terrible lives, whereas the women in the upper class might have had better lives, like I've had, for instance. So there's a huge amount of change that needs to be done, but it mustn't be change that is brought into being by force, by will, and by the will to power. That's all I can say, really.
It's an inner process, isn't it? Like it sparks within, and then you realize things, you gain insights, and then your experience changes, right? I mean, that's how I experience it, that life, like I'm looking at life like a child, I'm so curious and I really want to know who God is, for instance, and why I'm here. And I hear my soul crying and calling that this whole situation on earth needs to change, like there's really an urge to it. I can, like, if I don't do anything, I feel like I'm failing my purpose here, So
well, I think you're probably right. So you have to listen to what your soul is saying. It helps to write down. If you can write down the words that the soul is speaking to you and ask its questions you want answered, a lot can come down that way, to help you. You don't have to be thrashing around in a pit all by yourself. You're not. There are many people that are thinking the way you are, and they will be glad to hear your voice. Because to become a leader, you have to be very humble. And you have to realize that you're here in service of other people and life, in case you become inflated like the Christian church became. And so leadership, I'm just doing a course on leadership for the Ubiquity University, in which I say that you need a certain amount of life experience before you can become a leader. And then you need to look, where can I serve best? What can I do for life that would be the best avenue of work or speaking or whatever it might be? And you just have to work on that slowly until the answers come.
Yeah.
And they will come, because it sounds to me as if you're definitely on the right path. You understand what the problem is, but you're working your way to the solution. Yeah. But you'll find many others are doing the same thing in different spheres, possibly in the political sphere, or many people are working to free the planet from war, for instance. There are a lot of movements, anti-war movements on the internet, not in the streets, I mean. You also have terrible political movements which are all about power and getting more power for themselves. and no service of the people whatsoever. You have all that as well.
Yeah. 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 It's
a mammoth task.
It is. It is. But it really, it encourages me to read books like yours, for instance, because I feel like there's so much, that's true wisdom, you know? That's not the stuff that they teach us in schools. That is something that crosses my path because I'm on the same path, you know? And to conclude our conversation, I would like to dive in one more time into the principle of the mother. As your book is called The Forgotten Feminine Face of God. So can you find the right words to describe? So who is the mother really? Like, who is she? How can we address her? What's the description of her? How can we feel her and experience her?
Well, this is difficult because you have to, like, I had a vision, which I described at the beginning of my book, in which I had a vision of the goddess, of the divine feminine. And that vision was so tremendously powerful that it changed my life. I was in my 40s. So between 40 and 90, I've devoted myself in service of the feminine principle, bringing all this to light in our books, for instance, but also speaking a great deal, giving webinars about it. And you can imagine her as a person, as a deity, if you want, but be careful, because if you get tied up with the concept of deity, you're anthropomorphizing the goddess, just as men have done with the god. They created God in their own image. But you can imagine her as a feeling, as a being that is speaking to you. You can imagine her as the earth, for instance, as the being that is nature. Imagine her as nature. So you can find a way. I'll send you a document that's been a video that's been made of me, in which I try and speak about this, how to bring the two principles together, how to become more aware of the feminine, and how that dream completely changed my life at the age of 45.
Yeah.
And to pay attention to dreams, that's another thing that's very important. Jung was really the most important person for introducing the importance of dreams, far more than Freud, because he really saw the archetypal meaning of dreams, and particularly his own dreams. So that's another way, listening to your dreams, listening to your intuitions, releasing any desire for power over other people or power as a means of getting to your aim. You don't need power. You can do it through wisdom.
And in comparison to that, who is Father God? Who is the other part of the Godhead?
He's the counterpart. We have, like, think of yin and yang. That's one of the best examples. You have yin and yang, the two basic principles of the universe. Behind them, you have the mother, apparently, in the Chinese system. But in yang, there's a bit of yin, and in yin, there's a bit of yang. So they're not completely split off as masculine and feminine. And these are the basic principles in the universe. And I use something called the divine ground of being. And if you go to the Gnostic teaching, you find that they come forth together, the mother and the father, so to speak, come forth from the infinite. And then they marry and have a son, I think, in the Gnostic system, and a daughter. And then they have many sons and daughters, and those are the eons. So you don't need to fix on any image necessarily, but if there's a favorite goddess, you have, say, Isis, some people like Aphrodite, some people like Demeter. Choose a goddess who seems to have meaning for you. Beware of the power principle taking over, because it will creep in if it can, and just say no to it. And then you don't need to worship and get down on your knees, but it helps to have a relationship with that image of the goddess, whatever it is, and create a relationship like you would to your grandmother or your great-grandmother. So don't put her on a huge pedestal, because you are part of her.
Yeah. that's the thing. Like, when I'm praying to something external, I'm just giving away my power, right? Because she's part of me. He is part of me. Like, they're both part of me, right?
They are both part of you. And you can just ask the voice of wisdom within you, which contains both, if you like, rather than have either a male or a female image, but just ask wisdom for help.
So how do you, like, I know from myself that I don't actually know how to pray. Like, no one really taught me, and I don't want to pray like in church, like, the usual prayers. Well, so over the years, I've found a relationship to the Great Mother, and I'm always including the mother and the father when I'm praying, right? But like, no one is teaching us how to address the spirit world, like how to address the holy, the sacred, other than like the church is teaching us. So I'm wondering, can you speak to this a little bit? Like, how can we enter this realm? It feels so artificial in a way, because we are speaking to someone that we can't really see, like, we don't see the angels anymore. Like, they're all over the old buildings, but they're telling us that angels don't exist, so.
Well, angels do exist, most definitely.
Yeah.
The angelic realms do exist. And this is all the teaching about the transcendent has been lost completely.
Yeah, exactly. So what was taught in the mystery schools back then has all been lost. And now we find ourselves without any wisdom teachers. So,
well, I think I pray often to the Archangel Raphael, who's the angel of healing. So you can choose your angel to pray to, definitely. And there's so many beautiful images everywhere in the painters of the Renaissance, for instance. Go to the paintings rather than the churches, and find the paintings that mean something to you. There's been a marvelous exhibition of Sienese painting, 12th century, in London last year. And there you can find the most beautiful images. I've got one here of angels. And you can pray to that.
Yeah.
You see?
You can hold it a little bit higher. Yeah, now I'm seeing it. Yeah, that's beautiful. Wow.
So find an image that you like and pray to that image.
And praying for you just means like speaking,
speaking.
like having a conversation, like asking for help, or
Yes. How can you help me, because I have this big problem? How can you help me get in touch with all the mothers in the world? Please guide me and help me find my way, because this is too difficult a task to do on my own.
Yeah.
Just ask for help for a greater power. And you see, alchemy is the tradition that knows all about this. And that's why I write a lot about alchemy in my other book, The Dream of the Cosmos, because alchemy had the stages, 4 stages. It had the nigredo, which is the stage that we're in, of knowing nothing, blackness. Then we have the stage of the albedo, which is things getting clearer, getting whiter, with moonlight shining on things to clarify things. And then we have the citronitas, which is the stage of not really knowing again where we are, what we're doing, which is about where you are now. And then we have the stage of the rubedo, which is the enlightenment or revelation of the entire world as absolutely sacred. And that we are always connected to the transcendent dimension. We've lost touch with that. They have a wonderful image, which is in one of my webinars, where you have the upper world and the lower world connected to each other. It's in my book. It's right in the beginning of the preface, I think. I've said it, that we've lost touch with the transcendent dimension, and that's what our whole problem is. It's right at the beginning. So if you hold that in mind, that talk to the transcendent dimension and say, please help me to open my heart and my mind to your existence, because I don't know anything about you and I need to be taught. Please, I'm willing to learn. That sort of thing.
That's the entrance. Yeah, that resonates a lot. And I think it helps the people to find the door, because we just don't have any clue.
Well, there's no door, because the door's been shut by scientific materialism. And we've been told that we're just simply mechanical beings, just brought into being by chance. no reason, not that the universe wanted us to come into being, but just that we've been created and that the universe is dead. We're taught the universe is dead except for us, who are the only conscious people in it. Well, I mean, that is just so wrong that it's put everybody on the wrong path. Anyway, I'll send you my video and see what you think about it.
Yeah, beautiful. That's perfect. All right. So, if I may, can I ask you one more question? I'm just getting warm now. Speaking English and everything, I've got me a little bit excited, but now I'm getting more relaxed. So, what was on my mind when I was reading your book is that you speak of the mother and you speak of the father. And so I was wondering, is there a God? Like when we say God.
No, there isn't a God like a god and goddess sitting up there in heaven.
No, yeah, looking like humans. No, that I'm aware of. But if we think in terms of hierarchy or energetic fields or whatever, is there a God and then there is the mother and the father? Or is the mother and the father God,
I think the mother and father is God, what we call God. But God is so far beyond our understanding because there's so many dimensions and hierarchies, like there are in Kabbalah, for instance, that we can't, with our understanding that we have now, comprehend the existence of all these many, I think there are 18 dimensions or something like that between us and the actual beginning or Godhead or wherever this comes from. We don't know what created our universe. We call it God, but what is beyond God? And there are many universes, not just this one. And there are many people living on other planets, many sort of entities living on many other planets, which we haven't begun to comprehend. So there's huge lacunas in our knowledge of the universe and our knowledge of other planetary systems and all of that. And so to go to the source, you can pray to the source, but you can imagine the source as a source, maybe as a lake or as a place or whatever you want to imagine it as. And then out of that comes the two. Out of the one comes the two, and out of the two come the 10,000. That's what the Chinese system says. So you have to do it. You have to find your own way. I can't tell you because I found my way, but I do it differently. And I certainly have the angelic hosts. They're what's called the Elohim, where the highest level of the angels. And then you have all the angelic hosts below the Elohim. And then you have the ones who are closer to the earth. And the four great, there are many of them, more than four archangels in the Judaic system, in Kabbalah. There are many more archangels. So make yourself discover as much as you can about what interests you. Follow the path of what interests you. But don't try and fix anything into one thing so that think you've got it all taped.
Yeah.
You can't possibly have it all taped.
Yeah. No, I'm just interested in all these wisdom teachings because they answer so many questions I have, right? That I ask myself. So, yeah, so that was just one of it. Like if there is mother, father, and other beings around them who actually created them, because many of us are just praying to God without even realizing or even thinking about who is that God, like who is he, she?
Well, exactly. But then you can say about the planet, what is the planet? What is the consciousness of the planet that has brought the planet into being and lives within it and gives us all the wonderful food that we eat? And if you think of the planet differently, you'll begin to think of God differently.
Yeah.
Because that's why I put everything that lives is holy at the beginning of my book, because to realize that we are in a sacred dimension here on earth. We don't have to go up there to find the sacred. We are in the sacred here. And God is everything that is around us, and including us. We are part of God.
Yeah.
So you just have to get your imagination going and paint it, maybe, if you're a painter.
No, I'm more a photographer. Painting is not so my thing, but I'm not so good with the hands. I'm more a seer.
A visual
Yeah.
person. Okay, go to the things that attract you in nature then to photograph them. and go deeper into them. If you photographed a tree or a flower or water or a human being, go deeper inside and say, what is behind this image here?
Yeah, exactly. They all kind of emanate some energy, right? Each image.
The whole thing is energy, but the whole thing is life. This life is what we really need to worship, because this is what is living through us. This is what is giving us the energy to have consciousness, bringing us consciousness from the divine ground, so to speak. The whole universe is consciousness, and we are it.
Yeah. I wonder if there will ever be like a state of mind of humanity that we understand that, like that we live that principle, you know?
I think we're coming to that, but it may take another 500 or 1,000 years. But
hopefully not. I'm hoping it's going to happen while I'm still alive. I'd really like to experience the ascent to the fifth dimension, you know, and being part of it.
You may, without being, it may not be as far away as you think. So you just have to get going on that path and trust that you're being guided.
Yeah.
Don't lose yourself in doubt.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah. Doubt is the archons as well, right? Isn't it? Like bringing us away from our path.
Yeah, doubt and fear are the two things that take us away from the path. And fear makes all these wars. We've got to prepare for the next war, etc., etc. Think of all the money that's being wasted on wars.
Yeah. Okay. So
we can have another chat whenever.
Yeah, I'll collect my questions and we'll get back to you. Okay. I definitely have more. So the final question that I always ask the people that I talk to is, since my podcast is called The Mother's Voice, right? It's to shed light on who the mother is and give her a voice to speak her truth. What do you wish for the mothers of the earth? Like if you could give them a blessing, what would it be?
I would wish that they would know their value, and their value as mothers over thousands and thousands and thousands of years. They've given birth to life. This is their primary and marvelous and sacred role. I would like them to know that their role is sacred, because they're bringing new life into being and then caring for it to bring it up.
Yeah. That landed. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your direct words. You have come to such an old age. I mean, 94, you don't have any words to waste, right? You can just say what's on your mind. Okay. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much for inviting me and allowing me to speak, because it's lovely for me to have an opportunity to put what I know, what I'm sure of. I'm absolutely sure that we're guided, that we are on an evolutionary path, which is leading us to what I call the future human.
Yeah. And the mother is like one of the main subjects to walk that path in the
mother
right
is
order.
Primary. The mother is primary, just as the mother to the child is primary. And then we had a mother in the Paleolithic era who was everything and who gave us everything. And we worshipped her as the divine ground, as the divine mother. So we can go back to that, but we can also worship appreciate the earth as a mother, all the food that she gives us, and the care that we need to give her in return. So you go your way and trust it. Don't be worried.
Thank you.
Okay.
It was wonderful speaking with you.
It's very, very stimulating. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.